So hello there everyone, I'm Forever Motorsport and welcome to my first video in a long time. I haven't posted on the channel since 2020, so it's been a long time coming for this video. Today I thought I would just give my predictions for the 2023 Formula 1 season. This has been recorded pre-testing, so we have absolutely no idea what the cars are capable of, what they're even looking like at the moment. So it's going to be very interesting to see, first of all, what the cars look like as they come, as the teams lift off the covers of the cars and we get to see the liveries. And second of all, what the actual cars can do on the track. Testing can always be quite deceiving, but it's important to say that testing can also be very interesting to judging the car's pace, because sometimes it can be predicted correctly, sometimes it can be predicted quite wrong, but nevertheless it's an interesting experience as a fan to go through, because it leaves you with a little sense of the unknown, and then when you go into the actual season you can sometimes be pleasantly surprised or maybe disappointed in certain teams not quite managing to put together the promising package that they showed earlier before the season started. So to begin with this prediction video, I think I'm going to just go through my honest predictions of the championship order from 20th to first. I think I think it's quite clear based on last year which team will probably come last, and you won't be surprised for me to say that I think Williams will probably be the team that will come last, and therefore I think it can't be any one other than Logan Sargent to come 20th place. So Logan Sargent's an American driver. He was born in late 2000. He's got lots of racing experience in the lower categories. He's had a lot of experience in Formula 3, so not too much in Formula 2. So he had 3 years in Formula 3. He drove for the midfield outfit Charouz, and he also driven for Prema, and he also driven for Carlin, I think. He drove for Carlin in Formula 2, sorry. And in Formula 2 he had 1 year of experience. In that season he came fourth, I believe, and he was in like a very tight upper midfield battle with like about 6 or 7 other drivers competing for third place, but it was very close in the end. But he got the fourth and he got what his super license points in order for him to get into Formula 1. My problem with him is just the fact of his first year. It's hard to say how close he's going to be to Albon. Obviously, Albon's an established driver. He's kind of a known quantity. He's very solid and very consistent, and I think he will be the one that's leading the team. I think Sargent will be a bit more of a challenge for Alex Albon than Latifi was in the previous year, but nevertheless, I think to say Albon will get beaten by Sargent in his rookie year would be a bit far-fetched. I don't expect that. I don't think anyone does. So Sargent P20 makes sense. P19, I don't want to put this driver here because it's painful, but it's hard to see another way around it. I think Alex Albon is going to be in P19 again, which unfortunately is, well, it's just unfortunate really. So yeah, last year he had a very good year. He was putting the car into the high ends of Q2, sometimes like once or twice into Q3, I believe, mainly Q2. But the thing is, that car shouldn't be in Q2, and he's put it there. So he's carried on the work of George Russell. He's been consistent. He's been doing the best things that he can do with the car he's been given. The package is very limited, particularly around high downforce circuits. The car is very good around tracks with low drag. So like Monza, the car seems to perform quite well there. So they've got very high top speeds. They can get the points. Uh, they can compete for points in tracks like that. And I think Williams, if they can make a solid enough car, he could be knocking on the doors of the lower midfield quite consistently. However, just with the management restructuring currently going on with Jochen Peter leaving the team, it's a very transitional time for Williams, and a team that's already at the back, you can't see, and the funding they've got at the moment, you can't see them just suddenly making a leap forward. So yeah, it's got to be Logan Sargent and Alex Albon in P20 and P19 respectively. So P18, this is where it becomes a little bit tougher, because we're not really sure like where the drivers are going to be relative to the cars they've got, and obviously drivers moved around between teams, but my prediction for P18, I'm going to go for Yuki Tsunoda. I think Nick de Vries will just pip him in terms of the driver standings, because he's just Yuki Tsunoda is pretty fast on one lap. I think it doesn't seem to come through quite as obviously as it does to other fans, but I just see, like, looking at his Formula 2 season, if you look back, he had like 3 or 4 pole positions in his rookie year. That was his strongest statistic in his entire junior career, and he did it in Formula 2 on the stage below Formula 1. Like, that is incredibly impressive, and that can't be stated enough. And if you look at what he can do at his best, look at Abu Dhabi 2021. He qualified well. He would have qualified like P4 had his lap not been deleted. And then in the race, he came fourth. So he's done a brilliant job when he's at his best. So if he can just hone that in and manage to put those performances on more consistently, then I don't see why he can't do better than people are giving him credit for at the moment. But at the moment, he's very limited by two things. He's limited, first of all, by his consistency, and he's second of all limited by his own temper. So he needs to manage his attitude when he's racing, and he also needs to be more consistent. He needs to be putting in those points finishes, and that will maintain. And if he keeps doing that, that will maintain his seat in AlphaTauri for 2024. But as it stands at the moment, it's not looking very good for him. I think he's probably going to get dropped unless he does a sudden improvement this year and he has to beat Nick de Vries. He really does have to beat Nick de Vries. Nick de Vries is a experienced driver in terms of competing in motorsport, but on the other hand, he's a rookie in Formula One, and therefore, if you can't beat a rookie teammate after being at the team for 2 years, then you've got no reason to be staying there, to be honest. Red Bull have got loads of juniors in Formula 2, and they're looking for the next driver to probably be the wingman to Max Verstappen. As horrible as that sounds, it's probably the truth, and they need to make sure they're getting the best performance out of the drivers that they're putting money into. Otherwise, there's not much point in having the Red Bull Young Driver Academy. So yeah, Yuki Tsunoda P18. P17, I am going to go for Guan Yu Zhou. Alfa Romeo have always been languishing around 7th, 8th place. I think they should have probably finished 7th, really. They were quite lucky to get 6th in the constructors last year. It's just because Aston Martin weren't consistent enough. And there's one driver specifically I blame for that, and it's Lance Stroll. But we'll get onto him later on in the video. I believe Guan Yu Zhou has shown a solid enough level of performance to stay on the grid for 2023. He has been close enough in qualifying. If you look at the last half of the year in the qualifying statistics, Guan Yu Zhou was less than a 10th an average of Valtteri Bottas. That is very impressive for a rookie. That can't be stated enough. And a rookie, for someone such as Guan Yu Zhou's level, he didn't exactly take the world by storm in 2021 when he was competing in Formula 2. So to do that level of performance coming into Formula 1, like occasionally beating Valtteri Bottas, a very good qualifier, and performs very well in the races on occasion as well. It's very impressive from Guan Yu Zhou, and I think he'll carry that momentum into 2023 and be very solid. So yeah, for P17, I'm going for Guan Yu Zhou. For P16, this is going to be quite a challenging one to get your head around, but Kevin Magnussen P16. So there's one reason why I think Kevin Magnussen isn't going to finish any higher than this, and I think it's his consistency. So if you look at the races in 2022 where Mick and Kevin both finished, Mick outperformed Kevin in the races in terms of finishing ahead of him more often than Kevin finished ahead of him. He was much more consistent. However, Mick did obviously have more crashes, but also Kevin had a lot of crashes. And for someone with his level of experience, you wouldn't expect him to be having that many issues. So I expect him to not fix those problems, because if you've got that much experience, you won't fix the problems instantly. So he's probably going to have those problems again. And he always tails off towards the second half of the year, and sometimes even the second half of the first half of the year he tails off. So he just needs to consistently put together a campaign where he gets consistent points and doesn't drop off. I know the team's known for that. I know they start well and don't develop the car, and then they're kind of shit towards the end, but it's important to have a consistent performance level for the entire year in order to get a good position in the constructors. But I don't see Kevin being the absolute points machine that Hulk's known for being. I think Magnussen's going to take a while longer to get back to grips with the Haas, and maybe potentially if Haas sort their issues out with a new type of sponsor, hopefully they'll go up the grid. Might give Magnussen a bit more incentive to get his consistency up to par, but at the moment, Magnussen P16 sounds about right. So in 15th place, I think I would say Valtteri Bottas. I think Alfa Romeo in the second half of the year have been way off. I mean, the first half they were good, second half way off. They just didn't really have that much high level of performance, and I don't really see them carrying that into 2020. I see them carrying that into 2023, but what I mean is I don't see them doing the same thing they did in the first half of 22 and the first half of 23. I think they'll be sort of lower midfield, occasionally scoring some points. Bottas will show putting into Q3 on occasion, depending upon the conditions. But yeah, I don't really see him being able to do much more with the car because he's just going to be limited by the car. It's as simple as that. So Bottas going P15, P14. I'm going to go for... that's a tough one. I think I'm going to go for Nico Hulkenberg in P14. Again, Haas have not produced a good car in a long time, and I can't, even though they're new title sponsor and them seeming a lot happy after Brazil 2022, I can't honestly say for sure as the Haas could build a good car or a bad car or whatever. I'm pretty sure they're going to build a solid car to start the year, but I can't see them keeping that up for the rest of the year, and they'll probably just drop off. Teams like Alfa Romeo, AlphaTauri will be right there to capitalise. And yeah, I just see them being just there really. So that was P14. P13, I think I'm going to go for Nick de Vries. So yeah, so I've put Nick de Vries quite high up, mainly because he isn't the most unprepared rookie. He's probably the most prepared rookie that there's ever been in Formula One history, because he's driven so much in other categories. He's done the World Endurance Championship, he's done Formula E. You know, he's been around in Formula 2 for a long time as well. So, and he's been a Formula 1 test and reserve driver for the last year, and he's driven in Formula 1 race already. So he's driven for half the teams on the grid at in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, he's got the experience to do well, and by all accounts, he's a very solid driver, and I expect him to be getting points consistently in the AlphaTauri. Lower end of the points, but points nonetheless. And I think that consistency will just get him on top of the Haas, but not by much. We'll see though. So P12. So we've got 6 teams that we've not really talked too much about here. We've got Mercedes, Alpine, we've got Ferrari, Red Bull, we've got Aston Martin, and McLaren. Now, I've purposely left the top 12 drivers in that top 6 because I think there's going to be quite a bigger gap in terms of those 6 teams to the other teams I previously mentioned, and there have been in the previous years. So I think I'm not saying they're going to be battling for the title like McLaren, Alpine, and Aston, but I think those 3 teams are going to be a level above Haas, AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo, Williams. And the reason for that is budget. The budget cap is in place, but I just think in terms of the facilities they've got, those other teams, they're just in a much better place to do well this season. So I expect those 6 teams to be fairly clear of those other 4 I mentioned. So 12th place, let's just start with possibly the worst driver of the 12 of those 6 teams, and the driver I think is going to be the least consistent is Lance Stroll. So it's a shame really, because I think against Sebastian Vettel he didn't exactly get thrashed. So he's shown some high level of ability there. And I think what Stroll needs to do going into this season is just be a little bit more consistent. But I think his awareness needs to be is the main thing that needs to sort of increase, because the crashes like at USA 2022 are just irresponsible and reckless. Like, he was defending against Fernando Alonso. Fernando Alonso was always going to pull the overtake. He had like almost a 1 kilometer straight or something ridiculous to be able to pull a move out on Lance Stroll with DRS, with a speed advantage, with the engine turned up in ERS deployment. He would have got past him anyway. So I don't know what Stroll was thinking with these do or die moves along the straights, moving very late to try and defend against Fernando Alonso. I don't see the point in it. Like, he would have got points either way, wasn't needed, and he basically just blew a really freaking good chance of him scoring some really good points for Aston. That would have probably helped them to secure 6th place in the constructors, but he blown it. Yeah, it's absolutely. He had the measure of events that weekend, and it could have been a double points finish, but instead he finished. I think he got a DNF or something, but yeah, it's just not good enough from him. So, someone with experience, he's going into his 7th season in Formula One. It's unbelievable. You're going to his 7th season, and yet we're talking about him like he's, you know, been in F1 for like a year, and this is his 2nd year or something. He's had like a rookie year. It feels like in every single one of the 6 years he's been in F1. He's not really shown that much improvement. His qualifying speed has improved. I'll give him that. He's been quite good against Sebastian Vettel on occasion, and to be honest, he's been very close in the other times where he's not beaten him. So I would say his qualifying speed has improved, but his awareness is nowhere near the level it needs to be, and I mean nowhere near. Like, most Formula One drivers you see, or maybe even most drivers you see in any form of motorsport discipline that there's notable drivers in, they will all have better awareness than Lance Stroll, because his awareness is just shockingly poor for someone with his experience, and it needs to change. It really does. If he's going to ever get rid of this pay driver status and actually show people that he's on the grid just based on purely on merit, because I do believe he would be. It's just he wouldn't deservedly be in a high end team or even a midfield team. It'd be probably at the back, to be honest, because I just don't rate him that much higher than the other drivers. Plain and simple. It's just he needs to improve his awareness, and then he would have a much better shot at becoming an overall better driver. So yeah, him P12, Alonso P11. I think that's a fair enough target, I'd say, for Alonso, is that he'd be consistently clear of Stroll, but Aston Martin are in a bit of a rebuilding phase. They haven't got their new factory built yet, so we're waiting for that, and he's just joining a new team as well. But I do expect him to be comfortably beating Lance Stroll, and yeah, consistent points, probably nowhere near the podium. It's enough said for Alonso, really. He'll be brilliant as per usual, but the car just won't be there. And then the top 10, also Alonso will not going to do on the top 10, but for the top 10, I think that's a tough one to call. I think 10th is going to be Gasly. I personally rate Gasly fairly well. I just don't rate him like as a top tier driver, and I don't really rate him as top of the midfield either. I think the 2021 car flattered him a little bit because it was a very good car. Like, on occasion, it was probably better than the Ferrari and the McLaren, and that's why he was able to consistently put these ridiculous qualifying performances in. I mean, he's a very aggressive driver. Like, he just tries to carry loads of speed into corners without worrying too much about his racing lines and things like that. So it's hard to say whether he's just going all guns blazing and he's a really fast driver, or he's made to look fast by a fast car and having a brand new teammate who's completely unfamiliar with Formula One. It could be either of those two things. And yeah, I think going against Esteban Ocon is going to be a bit of a reality check for him, because obviously he's built up all this confidence ever since he's left Red Bull and gone back to AlphaTauri / Toro Rosso, and he's beaten all the drivers he's come across there. But Esteban Ocon is a known driver. He's beaten Sergio Perez in only his 2nd full year in Formula One. I expect Esteban Ocon to be on top of Gasly quite consistently. So Gasly P10. P9 Oscar Piastri. I think McLaren and that team will be in another tight battle this year. They're not going to be near the top 3 teams. I just expect, Piastri to take a little bit of time to get his feet under the table. He's been very, very good in previous categories. He's won Formula 3, he's won Formula 2, both in his rookie years, I believe. And there was a championship called the Formula Renault Euro Cup. I believe it's the only one he didn't win in his rookie year in terms of the car, single-seater car racing championships he's competed in. So that's one way you might look back and question it a little bit. But then again, he's young, and if you look at Albon's single-seater career when he first started out, it wasn't very good. So it can change quite rapidly. But I expect Piastri to be really consistent. I think he'll probably be beaten by Norris over the course of the year. It'll be beaten more at the start of the year. I think Piastri's strength seems to be qualifying, looking at Formula 2 as well as race pace. Like he's a bit of an all-round driver, to be honest. But I think because Norris is also highly rated, and he was highly rated when he went to McLaren, it's the only difference factor that there is the experience, and because you've got two highly rated drivers, but one with experience and one that you expect that one to be beating them, so that makes sense, right? So yeah, I would say Norris with his experience and him being embedded into the McLaren team, and him also being put on these brilliant performances, I can safely say he'll be ahead of Piastri in 2023, at least for the first half of the year, and overall probably will finish ahead. So Piastri P9. P8, I am going to go for Esteban Ocon. I don't think he'll be anywhere near Norris in terms of the point standings. I think Norris is just going to be clear of like the entire midfield. So there's those 4 teams I mentioned before, then the Aston Martins, then Piastri, and then the 2 Alpines, then Norris on his own, and then the top 6. I think he's proven that he's probably the best driver in the midfield right now. Like by a long way. Like look at the kind of gap he pulled in 2022 and everyone else, like 40 points or something ridiculous. He absolutely smashed Ricciardo, even though Ricciardo struggled with the car. It doesn't matter. He smashed a driver who's considered as world championship material before he joined McLaren, and now look what he's done to him. I expect Norris to be just keep being consistent, maybe getting a podium or 2 potentially. And it's a shame for other drivers that have to come up against him in the same team, because they could still be good. It's just because Norris is looking very good at the moment that it's going to be very hard for anyone to beat him, and he deserves to be in a top team. And I really rate Norris, and I think he's one of the best drivers on the grid at the moment. But yeah, we'll get on to the top 6 now, because this video is getting a bit longer than I wanted it to. So for P6, I think we'll be looking at potentially Carlos Sainz P6, because I think Red Bull are going to have a less dominant car. However, I think Ferrari will just drop off with their new team boss. It's going to take them a while again to get their feet under the table and really understand their car, really understand how they're going to manage the team from now on. I think it's going to be another transitional type year, maybe more like a 2021 type year for them. So it'll be Carlos Sainz in P6, judging by last year and 2021. I think Leclerc's got the measure of him definitely on pure speed, maybe not in terms of his decision making and his ability to basically just be consistent in his decisions, like making the right calls when there's like a change in the weather condition or there's a safety car, something like that. I'd always count on Sainz to make the right decision in those cases. But in terms of pure speed, I expect Leclerc to not wipe the floor with him. I think it's closer than people give him credit for. I just think Leclerc's got a level above Sainz at the moment. Sainz can hone that in, and he can definitely challenge for the title when the car's capable. He's got everything else. He's got the maturity, he's got the decision making, he's got the racecraft. He just needs the speed to challenge Leclerc. And if he gets that, then I don't see why not. So Sainz P6, P5. It's a tough call, but I'm going to say Sergio Perez. I think Red Bull are going to have a good car once again. I have no doubts about it. I don't think the development time in the wind tunnel versus the other teams is really going to impact them as much as people are making it out to be, because they've really got a ridiculous car, and they've been developing the car from 2023 early in 2022 onwards. So I expect Sergio Perez to be consistent in terms of scoring points, do what he did in the midfield teams, score points when they're available, but he'll consistently finish behind Max because Max is just Max, and Max is a better driver. And so Sergio will probably occasionally put on some really good performances, maybe win a couple of races, hopefully get lots of podiums, and just be there and to make the most of being in the top team. Because, well, that's pretty much better than being in the midfield team, isn't it? So I'm getting to the top four now. So I'm going to say for Mercedes and Red Bull, and we've got two Mercedes, one Red Bull, one Ferrari left to discuss. So we'll start off with P4, and I think it's a very tough call because those four drivers, Russell, Hamilton, Verstappen, and Leclerc, they're all very talented and they can all win championships. And I would put Sainz in that category when he's at his best as well. So I think personally, from what I'm hearing at the moment, I think P4 is going to go to Charles. I think he's going to be very good in qualifying, but the races, the car pace is going to let him down. The general strategies of Ferrari are going to let him down once again. I don't see that improving until Fred Vasseur gets used to his new position as being the team leader and gets on top of all these problems that Ferrari are currently having. So it's very important. It's very important for them to iron those issues out if they want to challenge for a title. And then in the top three, we have two Mercedes and one Red Bull. I think this year it's going to be George Russell P3, Lewis Hamilton P2, and Max Verstappen P1. So for George Russell, I think this year he's going to be an outsider for the championship. So he's going to be there or thereabouts, winning races, picking up pole positions, and challenging Hamilton and Verstappen. The difference maker is, I think, Hamilton's experience and Verstappen also having a slightly better car than Mercedes. I still think Red Bull will have the better car. It's just, I think Mercedes are going to be close enough to give Hamilton a shot, and Hamilton will just do what he always does when he's got a shot at winning a title, just be ridiculously consistent, ridiculously quick, and just be putting the car in, and Russell will be doing this as well, putting the car in places that it maybe not should be in, winning races that he probably has no right to win. So I definitely think there's that opportunity there. They'll certainly have a stronger car relative to the competition than he did last year, and that will be the deciding factor. Hamilton will take the fight to Verstappen, but I think Verstappen will just pip it. 2 reasons. First of all, because he will have the car, and second of all, because he has the momentum from the previous 2 years. So I don't if Hamilton's gonna get his 8th championship, although I do think he's got a good shot this year, I think personally Verstappen's just gonna pip him. And as for Russell, I think he's going to be very close to Hamilton. I think in qualifying, unlike last year where people were saying Hamilton had the better pace overall, it wasn't by much, but Hamilton did have the better pace. Russell's going to close that gap a little bit now that he's had a year at the team to sort of embed himself and get the experience of the car. He's going to start to challenge Hamilton on a more regular basis in terms of race pace and qualifying pace, and he's going to give him a real headache. The reason why I put Hamilton ahead is just experience, really. It's just that simple. He's had 10 years now of Mercedes. He's challenged for championships since his rookie year. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to win. He's been in pretty much every single scenario you can think of in terms of championship challenges. So I just don't see how Russell's going to be able to beat Hamilton. I think Russell is going to be a future world champion. I just don't think it's going to be when Hamilton's at the team, just because I think Hamilton's that good. I think Hamilton is one of the greatest drivers in the history of the sport, potentially the greatest driver in the history of the sport, and I'm not really a huge fan of him. I'm just saying what I see. I say what I've always saw. I've watched Formula 1 since 2012. And I've watched the season reviews with all the seasons that Hamilton's ever competed in, and there's never one season where Hamilton hasn't been absolutely brilliant. So I just think, even in seasons like 2011, where he got beaten by Button in the points, he's still there in qualifying, and the speed still shone through. It's just the fact that he wasn't consistent enough in those seasons. But yeah, overall, I'm going to say Max world champion again. It's going to be a close fight in my opinion between the two Mercedes and the Red Bull of Max. I don't see Ferrari playing too much of a part in it. Qualifying, Leclerc might get a few poles, a couple of wins perhaps. Same with Perez and Sainz. They'll be outsiders, but those top 3 I mentioned, they'll be the ones fighting for the title. So, guys, this has been Forever Motorsport. It's the first video I've done in a very long time, so I really appreciate you guys sticking around for this. I know it's been a long one, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I could give you some of my insights into what I think the 2023 season is going to look like, and it's been very fun. So, until the next one, guys, I'll see you next time.